Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Rutherford, certified functional medicine practitioner and chiropractor.
Dr. Randall Gates, board certified chiropractic neurologist, also a chiropractor.
And today we have a guest who is a Lyme patient who is going to be the center focus of our production this week, if you will.
Yeah, I'm Elizabeth Grimm. I'm a functional medicine certified health coach.
And she has been a Lyme patient who, is relative to our title, has been on the classic, in my opinion, Lyme journey. What we're doing this week, we're doing a series of Lyme for those of you who've been tuning into several of these. We've done series, if you're interested. New testing for Lyme is needed. We've talked about how it's is it an immune deficiency problem, or is it autoimmune? Is fibro Lyme? We talked about that. Is Alzheimer's Lyme? Is fibromyalgia, is functional medicine and functional neurology. I'm a functional medicine practitioner. Dr. Gates is both, I think, at this point in time. I guess I could say functional neurologist primarily, and functional medicine pioneering. Are these pioneering new modalities for Lyme? If you missed that one, the answer was yes. Lyme, cause of Alzheimer's, time for a new paradigm. So we've done a number of these, hitting every aspect of Lyme. We've gleaned the data in there from two sources. We've gleaned the data in there from primarily, initially, from our experience of treating Lyme patients who didn't come in for Lyme. They came in for other things. They came in for chronic fatigue. They came for fibromyalgia. They came in for autoimmunity. They came for some sort of autoimmunity, whether it was lupus or whether it was rheumatoid arthritis or whatever. And we saw these Lyme patients improving. Dr. Gates, who is a profound researcher, that's what he does for a hobby. Dr. Gates then we talked about it. Look, we had lunch and said, all these people must have autoimmune problems. And Dr. Gates, I'm pretty sure, and went off into that direction and started to fine tune what we did. So the second place that we get our data from is what we've been doing with patients over the years. Trial and error. These cases used to take 1 to 2 years. Now maybe they take about 4 to 5 months on average, with some taking a little longer, but on average, I'd say 4.5 to 5 months is about what they take. And we get pretty consistently good results in the properly selected patients. Elizabeth was a properly selected patient. So full disclosure there. So anyway, you've been listening to us, and we're going to do another presentation in a week or two that's going to be on disc, and it's going to be the next in our series of No BS series on chronic problems, and Lyme is going to be it. And this is kind of the lead up to that for those of you who might be interested. But today we're going to hear about the journey of a Lyme patient. Elizabeth's going to do this. As you heard, you are now a
functional medicine certified health coach.
Okay. Well, she wasn't when she came in here.
No.
And she was doing pretty good when she came in here, her words, I think, correct? And she had already been through Lyme treatment. And so we thought this would be a really good, more than just a case to present. We wanted you to hear from a patient. Okay, and this patient who's been here, we have kind of an interesting way of treating. She's seen other patients. She's going to tell you her story. She's met other patients. She's been in the chat rooms, the whole thing. But her journey is so classic of what I experienced in the consults when we are trying to qualify the patients that we're treating, and her journey seems to entail virtually everything that you as a Lyme patient may have experienced. And it was so compelling when we heard it that we actually asked, and those of you who watch this is the first time we've ever had a guest on it. We have a lot of people ask us if they can come on here. What was so compelling, we felt that it would represent and help you to understand maybe a little better from the patient side the two different paradigms that we're saying are there. We're saying that the new paradigm is probably an improvement over the old one, and but also, some of you are going to embrace that, some of you aren't. This is going to be, I think, some really good data coming from the heart of someone who you can relate to, and maybe give you some more data when you're doing your research online or going and interviewing doctors, and a little bit wider framework of good, really good information and experience to help you to make maybe better decisions in your journey, to maybe, if you're not feeling good, to get better. If you're already feeling a little bit better, maybe to up your game a little bit farther and understand a little bit more of what we've been talking about for 2 years now, I think. So now Dr. Gates and Elizabeth worked together on this, on her patient journey, if you will, which she had a long journey before she got here. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Dr. Gates. He understands her case very well. I think he would be better to ask the questions that need to be asked, and Elizabeth articulated her journey to us on a couple of occasions, and I'm sure that you'll get what you're looking for here if you follow through and watch the rest of this video.
Okay, so fantastic. So why don't you tell us about when you got sick?
Okay. So I grew up in Gardnerville, which is about an hour south from here. And at the age of 14, I just had some weird symptoms. So I spent a lot of time in I would have all these weird symptoms, but my family would basically just be like, oh, you're a teenager. Oh, we've had some family issues. Like, you're just internalizing that. So it's not that they weren't supportive, but they didn't think to continue to get answers for me. So I saw an allergist. I did some things. Over an 8-year period of time, I saw, I think, every doctor in the area that would see me, and tons of them. And everyone would say, you probably need to get therapy, which I did. You probably need to do all these different things. And it didn't really help. And so so that was in 2002 to 2000, sorry, let me get my timeline right. A few years later, I started college, and the stress of going to the university made everything a lot worse. I started to get depression. All of my pain was worse. Everything is a classic Lyme story. Your symptoms just kind of trickle and trickle. And I finally reached a point where I saw a doctor who told me, you will never be able to have children. Your body is going to continue to get this way, and you better just get used to it. And I was not okay with that. And I had a hard conversation with my parents, and I said, we have to find an answer. Okay. And they said, we will find an answer. And so my mom and my stepmom, they are an amazing support to me. They sought out to find that answer. And I saw probably 10 doctors within a few months. Okay. Anyone who would see me in there, I got all these different things. And finally, the last doctor, the last one, was a local doctor in Gardnerville. I didn't have to go to the Mayo Clinic or anywhere else. And she stared me in the eye and she said, I think you have Lyme disease. Wow. And this to me was such a special moment because I had a name for all of the hell that I had been going through. And so I walked away from that, no idea what Lyme disease was. I thought it was from the Lyme that gets in the shower.
Oh, gotcha.
I had no idea. I had never heard of it. I never saw a tick, nothing. But that's where my journey started. And so she started me on treatment almost immediately. It was right around Thanksgiving weekend. Okay. And I tanked hard. My body was extremely compromised, which we can get back to that later, things that I learned, but I was not strong enough to start treatment at that time. And she put you on antibiotics. She put me on antibiotics at that time, yeah. And so I struggled. Shortly after that, it was clearly like we were hitting the Lyme, but I was bedbound. I was living in Reno, I'm married, and my husband and I made the difficult decision for me to move back to Gardnerville with my family so they could care for me. Wow. And I was sleeping 22 hours a day. We found a Lyme Literate medical doctor, and he was wonderful. We went to the Bay Area to see him. So that's kind of just how my journey started. Like, I immediately got my diagnosis, which is so freeing. But then after that point, I tanked hard and I started on this treatment journey, which was challenging. But what I do want to say is I had a really supportive family that said, if I rewind a little bit, how to pick the doctor that was right for me. They read me this book that I've written a little blog about a while ago. And it basically is something to the effect of the top 10 Lyme treatments in the world. Okay. And that, my parents read that to me. I wasn't at a point where I could read.
Wow.
And so they read to me all of this and they said, you pick your doctor and we'll travel there. And one of the doctors was in Germany, which I'm like, y'all are crazy. But they said, you know, pick the doctor and we'll go there. We'll get the treatment that's right
They
for
didn't
you,
say there
whatever
were
you
two
need.
doctors. Or
No, you guys weren't in this book. You were
were
not in my book. So of this book that we picked, I read the profile of one doctor who ended up being the doctor that I saw in the Bay Area. And the understanding was with my family, you pick a doctor and you go 100% of the way.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to like dip into different treatments.
Okay.
And so I took that seriously. And I committed to my doctor after I met him. And I was like, yep, I'm going to go 100%.
Mm-hmm. And what did he tell you?
So I was very sick. And so it's a 4.5-year relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? So immediately I was probably one of the sickest people to walk into his office at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing IV antibiotics shortly after that because my body couldn't handle the orals. And I started doing all of these other alternative treatments to complement it. The goal of my family was to reach the point of hyperbaric chamber. They wanted me healthy enough because they had known a few people to do hyperbarics with Lyme and succeed extremely. So that was like a family goal that was kind of set out for me, which I agreed with. But honestly, I didn't have the like brain power to even argue with it or research with it at the time. I was just living and doing the best that I could. So one of the things that he did is he put me on a gluten-free and dairy-free diet, which was good. He tried to regulate my sleep, which was a mess.
Okay.
I was chronically nauseous. So in addition, I went through 7 PICC lines and then I got a port. And I had to do IV Benadryl 24 hours a day to keep up with the nausea that I had. So my body was just compromised, but I did the best I could, you know.
And 4.5 years of that.
For pretty much, yeah. 4.5 years of switching up the medicine, pulsing. I had a ton of supplements. And each year got better. I extremely succeeded. So year 1, I lived with my parents. Year 2, we moved out. Year 3, I started feeling more confident to be independent and I started driving again, just a teeny tiny bit. But as my independence came and as I got stronger, I took advantage of what those liberties were. I never worked from this entire time. There were points in time, which I think a lot of Lyme people will relate to, where you can't even have a conversation. Like it's so stimulating to have all the noise or all of the different things. I understand when people are in the chat rooms and they feel isolated, but they can relate to their online community. That is a powerful group of people. What I also learned in my healing journey, though, is though they were wonderful to me at a certain point in time, it also became something that held me back in my treatment of being so entrenched in those blogs and all of those things and the Facebook groups. So it's not a knock to them, but it wasn't helpful in my healing journey at a point.
Because of ideas that would hold you back, or
what I found is, and it was actually my Lyme doctor who told me. He said, if you want to get better, you have to set your sights on something more.
Okay.
And so I did, and it was such a painful conversation, right? Like those are my friends. That's where I found community. But he was right. He was definitely right in pushing me towards.
I asked because I hear this commonly in the consults.
Right.
I'm in my Lyme groups and so on and so forth. And a lot of times it's a little harder to bring that group over to the fact that they can do better or that there may be other or additional things that could be done. So that's why I asked. Okay. Hope I didn't interrupt.
No, that was good.
Fine.
Because that's a really good point of how you have that support. You have a common group that understands what each other is going through, but a lot of them maybe were not getting better. So that was their perspective. And then you were getting better. You were doing all the right things. You were, 100% into this treatment and it worked.
Right.
So by year 4, you're basically semi-functional.
I'm doing better. I'm still not at a point where I can work, but I'm feeling good. I actually got told I was in remission with Lyme around year 4. And my family threw this huge party. It was a celebration.
Wow.
We invited all of these people over. And shortly after that, I relapsed. And it was a very big disappointment, but at this relapse, I didn't want anyone to know. I knew inside of me that if I could keep it a secret and just let everyone think I'm still healthy, that I was going to just be healthy.
Okay.
There were some things that that I was treating with my doctor, which now I don't know if I would have needed to do that, but I was doing the best that I could with the knowledge I had. And so I went on to treat for 9 more months of IV antibiotics, but nobody knew. And so everyone was like, oh, you're doing so great. Life is so good. And I'm like, yep, everything's good. But it kind of forced me to like have that mindset of I'm setting my sights on something bigger. I want to be healthy. I want to experience life.
So then you finish 4.5 years, basically. Once you finish those 9 months, you're back to normal, semi-normal. And then how long after that did you come into our clinic?
So right about at 4.5 years, I went to see my Lyme Literate.
Did I say 4.5 months? I'm sorry.
I meant 4.5 years. You're fine. Yeah. So at that point, I saw my doctor, and he always gives me good words of wisdom. And he said, "You're like, be free and fly," was his words to me, which was so empowering. But I knew that I wasn't fully healthy. Like, I have a bunch of nieces and nephews, and I would look at them, and I would like, my immune system was compromised. I would be sick for a week.
Right.
So I found you guys because I saw one of your Lyme Fact or Fiction videos. Okay. Somebody sent it to me. I don't even know who it was. Wow. But then I also saw that you were all about the immune system. And I'm like, well, that's what I need. I've already dealt with my Lyme. I need my immune system to be better, which I've also learned with functional medicine. They're all intertwined. It's not so compartmentalized like our Western medicine likes to believe. And so I came and found you because of my immune system. But what I really think I found you for was dealing with the underlying issues of Lyme that were still existing in my life, including my immune system.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so you met with Dr. Rutherford in that initial consult. What was your take from that initial consult?
I really don't remember much. We were talking about this offline, and he perceives that I came in as the expert, but I perceive that I came in as I knew that I had done my Lyme based on what my Lyme doctor had told me, but I wasn't in the functional medicine paradigm. I was operating under the Western medicine where we see a cardiologist and then we see a gastrointestinal, and it's all separate. Right. But our bodies are so well-rounded, and it's not like your arm functions without the rest of your body. Like you need it all.
Good analogy. Yeah. Yeah. So you had the consultation and it piqued your curiosity. So we did the exam, and one thing that I found interesting was the brain exercises. So I'm a functional neurologist, board certified chiropractic neurologist. So we were putting you through brain rehab exercises, and one day the staff hooked you up on the wrong side, correct?
They did. It was, nobody likes to have a medical mistake happen to them, but this one I was actually grateful for. So they hooked me up, and I was so new at them. I didn't know that it was the wrong one. I didn't know if you guys just changed my protocol. I didn't recognize it.
And let me interrupt right there. Sorry. And just for perspective, let's say someone has a left frontal lobe weakness. So we're targeting that left frontal lobe. Well, in this instance, the opposite side frontal lobe for Elizabeth was stimulated. And so,
so I went home kind of not feeling right. But then by the end of the night, I was in so much pain. And I'm like, I don't know what just happened, but that mistake messed me up. And I was able to come in the next day and say, like, you got to reverse this. And we were able to do just a couple exercises to make the pain go away, which I was really grateful for. But it showed me the power of the brain exercises and how much they can do.
Now, for some people out there, that might have been a radical departure with the brain exercises part. So this is part of our paradigm. And I would ask you before I make this comment, the things that you came in here for, that you came in here to improve, and you saw about the immune system, but would you say that the things that you came in here for and addressed were the things that had you already compromised before you then you got the Lyme, and then you went through that whole treatment, but these still needed to be taken care of. And if that's not correct, that's fine.
No, you're absolutely correct. So
Okay.
when I alluded to at the beginning of this talk that I had all of these underlying issues,
Right.
I had elimination problems. I had major stress problems where I would just internalize everything and not eat or anything. I had sleeping problems. I had the core fundamentals of health were all broken in me. So when I started treatment for Lyme, my body was not in a place where it could properly process the medication or use it to my benefit. I was still sick. I was sick from the very beginning. And what I wish I would have learned is that if I could have taken care of those things first, if I would have had a functional medicine doctor in my life to help me resolve, or honestly, a coach to help me get through those issues and identify those things, then should treatment have been needed, it would have been very minor. It would have not taken years and years and years off my life. I literally gave my 20s to being sick. And it wouldn't have cost me nearly as much money, which I so badly wish that people recognized or knew of that. Like, had I have known, it would have given me a lot back.
So back to the segue to the brain. Okay, so one of the things that we have seen in our paradigm is people are usually compromised hosts. A lot of people are walking around out there with Lyme in their system, no problem. A lot of people are walking out there with Lyme resistant, big problem. Ones that have big problems usually are already compromised hosts. One of the things is usually people have experienced some sort of emotional trauma in the vast majority of our cases. And so the way that's handled in certain groups is with herbs and botanicals that are really designed for kind of lesser stresses than that. And the other way it's handled is drugs. In our world, it's handled with brain rehabilitation exercises. Both the emotional trauma and aspects of the pain, which is always in the nervous system, are handled with the brain rehab exercises. And that was why Dr. Gates was emphasizing the aspect of that part of Elizabeth's treatment. This is not meant to be a testimonial, okay? And it's hard to not cross over into that area. It's just meant to try to present to you, in our opinion, there's a better paradigm, but you'll be the one to decide once you've heard the rest of this. So, okay, so what's compromised? Patient gets, and we want you to understand, we understand this whole world. Patient goes to a Lyme literate doctor and does a lot better. But the Lyme literate doctor doesn't deal with the things that have already compromised you, because the medical model, which is transferred over into the Lyme one, frankly, the alternative world in general, is let's deal with the Lyme, let's deal with the bacteria and everything from that perspective going on. They deal with some of it if they perceive you have heavy metals and things like that. But, okay.
So then we're continuing treatment. You start feeling better. Kind of take us through that.
Yeah. So my treatment here, right?
Right. So we're doing neurological exercises for these stress components like Dr. Rutherford was talking about. We're getting into functional medicine-like treatments where we're addressing your gut because you've been on antibiotics for so long, balancing out your immune system.
Yeah. One thing that stood out to me is through this whole Lyme journey, I was gluten-free and dairy-free, right? That was one of the things of going 100%.
Right.
So my first lab with you was, let's look at how my gut is doing. And you made the comment to me that for already being gluten and dairy-free, my gut is the most compromised you've ever seen, which makes complete sense because I've been stressed out, eating the wrong foods, doing all these things for years, and then adding boatloads of antibiotics on top of it.
Right.
My gut had some problems. So I started the elimination diet, and it was hard for me, but it was also freeing. So I'm not a person who wanted to like say goodbye to different foods or like have a ceremony.
Right.
I wanted to get better, and this is what I was going to do. So I started it, and it took me a while before I realized anything was changing. I think the biggest thing that I noticed a difference in was when I reintroduced tomatoes. I love tomatoes. I like Mexican food is my jam. Ketchup, love it. And so when I reintroduced those foods, I got nauseous. I eat the entire day that I was eating them. The next morning when I woke up, I couldn't get out of bed. because of the inflammatory response that had taken over. And I think from that was a good testimony for me to see that my body is sending me signals. I need to tune into what my body is sending me. But by pulling back on those foods, I was finally able to hear the message loud and clear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So then you start getting more energy,
Yep.
sleeping better, less stress.
Yeah, my life really transformed. And so I had a lot of people in the community who had Lyme disease, and I was like, look, you gotta figure this out with me because this is so exciting. And I was energized by what I had changed. There was a huge part of me that just wished I would have done this first before my treatment, because honestly, I don't know how much of my treatment would have been needed, if any at all. So I became almost like a light of like telling everyone how excited I was about functional medicine, about this clinic. And I just really believe in what is going on here. And I don't say that to be like a testimony, but it got me interested in functional medicine as a field in general.
Exactly.
And I became a health coach. And so now what I get to do is I get to walk along this journey with people. I get to partner with them through the goods and the bads and the ins and the outs, and figure out what does it look like to eat a restricted diet when you want to be social, but you can't eat what everyone else is eating? Or what does it look like to create a good sleeping routine so that you can take hold of actually getting good sleep? And how do you prioritize self-care and focusing on what's right with people rather than what's wrong with people? Even in a medicine paradigm, we describe people as, you have Lyme disease and you have this and you have this, but we don't talk about a lot of what's right with them. Their generosity and their perseverance and all of the things that as a coach, I get to like lift you up and build you up and help you or anyone to fix these core fundamentals and then focus on what's right and what's beautiful in you.
Right. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome, because that is often missed.
Yeah.
Because doctors would just get focused on what's wrong, and we're trying to fix it. And we forget about what's actually still working lots of times, and emphasizing that with the patient, because that's not where our mind is.
Right.
So now you have your business where you're doing this. You've dedicated your life now to really to functional medicine and helping other Lyme disease patients and other chronic pain patients. So how would they find you?
So I have a website, elizabethgrim.com. I'm also on social media at Functional Wellness Coach. That's my little handle.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I post things that are inspirational, that are encouraging, recipes, different things. So it's a brand new business. I'm just getting off the ground. But I've been learning this and practicing what I preach for now about 3 years.
Okay. Go ahead. I have something else.
Yeah, I'm listening, and I'm realizing that. So Elizabeth has referred a lot of patients to us, and she does so by literally. I say, "Oh, you know Elizabeth?" And they say, "No, I met her online. She took me out to lunch."
For 4 hours.
For 4 hours. I'm like,
I
she's
love
so
people.
generous.
I'm like
so
people.
generous.
I'm like, she took you out to lunch. And so it strikes me as I'm sitting here listening to this, that you're doing my consult for me. Okay. And I do the consults, I do the intakes. We do actually evaluate patients to determine whether they are physically and mentally able to do what we're going to ask them to do to get the results. As you all probably know, all the Lyme doctors, it's cash only. For us, it's cash only because insurance won't pay for it. It's not that we wouldn't do it. Okay.
Can I interject something?
Probably part of what I was going to ask, but go ahead.
All Lyme treatment is cash pay.
Okay.
So the majority. So coming to this clinic is not unforeseen or weird or different.
Okay.
In the Lyme paradigm, at least.
So I do consults to make sure that the person's going to start here. Their chances of, if they're going to do what we ask them to do based on our exam and our history and our lab findings, that they're going to improve, and preferably substantially. And so it's a very important thing to me. Now, we talked a little bit about Lyme patients, and I use the term, sometimes I'll say I think the whole Lyme thing can be a cult. I was educated not to say that because Lyme patients are very sensitive about that. And I can see that. I just get a lot of the terminology, and I get a lot of the, like, I had one yesterday, and it was like, well, well, how can you do it without killing the bacteria? And I just, oh, I did it. I wasn't supposed to pound that. and how can you do it? And if you look at our other videos, you'll see that eventually it becomes an immune problem, not a bacterial problem, and not a co-infection problem, so on and so forth. And you have to handle all these things that have compromised you. And it was difficult to maybe get that person to understand. So when I used that term, what I meant was there's terminology that has been around for so long. And I understand, I was friends with a doctor here in town who was the president of the National Lyme ILADS group for like 10 years. So I mean, I understand the conversation, and when people start to embrace this terminology, it's always hard for me to get off of somebody that I have sitting in front of me that I know could be a really very good patient, but if they have these concepts and you can't break these concepts, then they can't be a very good patient, because as you're treating them, they're going to come in and say, but why aren't we doing this? And my friend said you said, and then it just disturbs it, and they go off into different directions, and then they don't get this part of what we screened for. Do you run into that when you talk to people from the chat rooms, or you're trying to tell them, maybe did they say, well, that was you and not me, or maybe it was what do they call it, psychosomatic, and you just talked yourself? Or do you get any of that? Or you're so compassionate about this, I can only imagine what a lunch would be like with Elizabeth. But
the people that I talk to, and when I share my story, it resonates with them, right? Because I share that if I would have done a functional medicine move first, it would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of money, which is 1,000% the truth. I wish I could have years back and money back, honestly, to be able to live my life more. But some people, they're not ready to hear it, or they just don't fully understand the whole concept. So there was a Reno Lyme support group, and there was a good amount of people in there. And I got to have conversations with a lot of amazing individuals about what I had done. And many of them ended up coming here to see you guys. Right. And so the group shrunk, and I believe it doesn't meet anymore, because people have gotten healthy. When you surpass that point, you don't necessarily need a support group. Do I think that support groups are important? And do I think that the people who chose not to do that, some of them have financial issues? That is totally realistic. Some of them, it's just not their time. I really believe that people will come around when it's right for them. And so I don't face a lot of no, or that's wrong. And maybe I will after this video, that's okay. But honestly, I've done everything. I've done hyperbaric chamber. I've done IV antibiotics, and I did it well, and I did well. But at the end of the day, I still wasn't healthy. I still needed more work to take care of my body. And that's where the functional medicine paradigm came in. Getting all of the systems of my body to work is what was key. So making sure that I was fully sleeping, making sure that I was fully digesting, making sure that everything was working how it was supposed to, and reducing inflammation in my body. That's where the key was. So anyone who doesn't agree with that, or has science that says different, I lived that world. I really, really did. And I've come full circle, and I have learned that this needs to come first, not second. And I wish I could do it over again.
Does anybody have real science that says different?
I wouldn't say no.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, and we can go more.
Yeah, I just want to impart one other thing, because I'm working with patients with these functional medicine issues. Dr. Rutherford and I are very similar. We're very simplistic. We eat a very simplistic diet, and that's not realistic for a lot of people. And so when we take people through elimination diets, one of 7 different diets, sometimes we strip people down to only eating chicken and introduce them 1 food a day. What you talked about, and supporting someone through that journey. Not forever, but supporting someone through that journey can be pivotal, because a lot of people just can't get through it. And then ultimately they self-sabotage, they go off the diet, even though they knew they felt better when they're on the diet, or they're doing their brain exercises, old patterns come in and the wheels fall off the bus. And that's really what you're focusing on, correct?
Yeah.
Amongst other things, but that's
definitely.
a big part of it.
So that's one area where I can come alongside someone and figure out what does this actually look like? In theory or on a paper, when you write it down of this is what I'm supposed to do, it sounds really hard. But as a coach, I can come alongside you and say, okay, let's figure out how to make this work. Let's figure out how to surround you with community or get the things out of life that you still need while you're still following the diet or the food plan that's set out. And so I went through an extensive program to learn how to come alongside people and help. In the coaching relationship, the client or, your patient is always the expert. And so I get to say, like, you're the expert of your own body, but I'm here to assist you and figure out how this works for you in your life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's incredible. Yeah. And it's amazing. People who have a coach do better. There's so many scientific studies that link compliance and health to having a coach along their side.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have the Facebook.
Yeah,
people do have support, do better. And the thing I liked about this is she improved in both models. Okay, so people out there don't think we're just like, okay, but again, this breaks into the models that we've talked about. I will tell patients who have just generally chronic pain issues and chronic illnesses, it's just that the medical model is the wrong model for chronic problems. And your doctors will tell you that too. I was just reading what Vasquez said the other day. And he said he went to school to become a doctor. So he's a chiropractor who was doing functional medicine. And then he went to osteopathic school. And he said, here's what they told us about functional disease. It's all idiopathic. And your job is just to make sure that you give them medication so that the patient can feel better. And that's not exactly the ILADS thing, but the ILADS is an acute modality. It's a kill the bacteria modality, do the immune deficiency stuff, do all that type of thing. And this is a chronic problem. And if you watch one of our videos on, is it immune suppression or is it autoimmune? You'll see that there is data out there that shows that when we accidentally came upon the fact that it was autoimmune, that's autoimmune. There's an actual chemical process in which an enzyme is affected, and now it becomes an autoimmune problem, and it's off into the races. And so it's actually a chronic problem. And chronic pain demands an all systems attack. Okay, you need to address everything and include and so Elizabeth was able to present that both modalities did give her improvement. And I liked that. It was one of the reasons I was comfortable in having her come on here, because I really think it helps you to maybe understand a little bit better as to, well, I went here, but I didn't get better, or I got much better, but that's all there is, or so on and so forth. And you can look at the presentation we did a couple of weeks ago on what the functional medicine combined with the functional neurology paradigm is, if you're interested. But these are informational videos. We're not charging for anything for them. This is the closest thing we've ever had to what you would call a testimonial. I mean, we have testimonials on another website online. But the whole idea was to give you, I felt like, the last pieces of a puzzle from a patient's perspective for people who have been watching us, to kind of fill in the blanks from someone who's actually been there and is very motivated and very excited about it, to the degree where she has sent us a lot of patients. And I didn't know that the group shut down, but I know there's a couple of Lyme doctors within several hundred miles of here who aren't very happy with our practice. But that's that really was what made me feel like this would be a great fit for what we were doing. So. Do you have anything else?
I do not. I think we pretty well covered it. Anything else you want to impart?
Yeah, I think I hope anyone watching this hears my story, that I know what it's like to be ostracized by the medical community and not fit in and not have someone believe you. And then if you are lucky enough to start treatment or afford treatment, it can be exhausting and expensive. And I have walked all of that path. And I am so grateful for Dr. Gates and Dr. Rutherford and Power Health as a clinic. In these videos, I've watched, I think, nearly all of them.
Oh my God.
Because I've learned so much, and I am so passionate about partnering with people in a functional medicine paradigm and working on these things. I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. It was never clear to me as a kid. And after going through all of this craziness, I know. And so I desire to help people and help them to feel as great as I do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Yeah. Excellent. Well, we'll be doing our cutting through the BS series here in the next week or two, as Dr. Rutherford said, for Lyme disease. Elizabeth will be a part of that as well. And otherwise, we'll be coming back next week talking about autoimmune disease. It's a rising epidemic. More and more celebrities have it now, so we'll be discussing that. And we appreciate you watching. We'll see you next week.